Yo, what's going on, freaks? Welcome to another episode of the Sangoma Society Podcast. I'm your host, Izzy, and this week we have a really stellar guest. Goes by DJ sG4rY. We had an awesome conversation. Just to give you a background on sG4rY, he's an anthropologist. He's been a DJ for a long time. Not just playing, this guy releases lots of compilations. He helps organize a festival called Gagalaka. And yes, I love that word, Gagalaka. 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 I don't know how to pronounce it, but either way, I think they want you to play with it a little bit, you know? This is the best name for a festival you can possibly imagine. And I've never been, but I've heard amazing things about it. So sG4rY actually just released a double CD for the festival. It represents the music that takes place there. One CD represents one stage that's more chill out, down tempo, weird, progressive, cultural fusion, psychedelic music, and the other CD is straight psychedelic trance. That's right. And it's probably why you're listening to my podcast. I mean, if you're listening to this podcast and you don't like psytrance, it's probably not the one for you. So I'm going to promote psytrance while we're doing this podcast, if you don't mind that. He also released another compilation just recently that came out on Sangoma Records. Yeah, that's right. Called Reflections. And it's got some stellar tracks on there. Check it out for yourself. If you don't believe me, the link is below in the description box for everything I'm talking about. Oh, and Gagalaka Festival is happening August 26th through 29th. So if you're around Germany at that time, I definitely suggest going to that one. This double CD compilation, it's actually free. But if you choose to donate money to it, they are going to be giving it to a good cause that promotes cultural diversity. So I love promoting that kind of stuff. I love it. I don't get enough of it. Yeah, so tune in and enjoy this episode. Until next time. Peace. All right, man. So we got sG4rY.
Hey,
And
Izzy.
all the way in Germany, all the way from Germany, around the Munich area. And yeah, why don't you give a little bit of introduction of yourself, so people know a little bit who you are.
Thank you, Izzy. Thanks for having me. Super nice to be part of this format. I am, I'm in Munich, based in Munich. We have lots of snow here today. I think 20 centimeters of new snow.
Me
I
too.
just came back from a nice walk in the nature, which is something I also get a lot of energy these days. We are very restricted. Now Germany is in the second lockdown caused by the pandemic. So nature is something that really plays a big role at the moment in my life. I'm trying always to go out as much as I can to spend time outside, and also because there's no parties or events happening. I don't know how things are at your side, but Germany is super.
Well, I moved out here 2 years ago, and I moved to kind of get away from the parties because there's no parties here in India. I mean, there's other scenes, you know, and there's other music that I was engaging in a little bit, but not like fully involved. But I kind of want to get away from psytrance. So it's been even longer for me since a real psytrance event, because I went to focus on some professional aspects. But yeah, I kind of got used to it a little bit, but I can't wait to be able to come to Europe and do some things a little around the States, if possible. Yeah, but yeah, nature, it's not like rocking out here because it's very flat land. It's also snowing outside today here in Indianapolis. It's more suburbia, but I'm more distracted by professional things and education right now, and looking for career work in software engineering. But yeah, give us a little bit about like who you are. Like, why are you on here today? I know you're a well-respected DJ in Europe, and you've done a bunch of compilations. I even follow you on Bandcamp, which was a very, very smart thing to do because there's so many releases. I know you're buying, you're constantly buying music and collecting psytrance for forever because you've been into this way longer than I have. And I'll see releases. I'm like, I never even heard of this record label, but this is rocking stuff. I know you're always fishing for like the hidden gems. Like just from following you, I don't even know you that well personally. So that was a good thing.
Nice.
And I know you used to like you have a brother or someone that you were really close to that you used to do sets with, Smiley, so Scary and Smile
Mary,
and
exactly. Yeah,
Mary
Scary and
Smile,
Mary. Yeah,
Scary and Mary. It worked really well together.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so talk to me a little bit about like your DJ history and your
Mm-hmm.
background.
Yeah, I'm glad you're following me on Bandcamp, which is for me really the best platform to find new music and also to directly support artists. I really love their concept, and I prefer it a lot to platforms like Beatport. And so I've been buying music a lot on Bandcamp, and yeah, maybe even now, as I don't have gigs, I think it's the longest time since 12 years that I don't have any gigs. I think the last gig I played in July 2020 in Poland. So since then, I'm constantly still getting new music and focusing a lot on what's happening also. I have the feeling that many producers and artists are spending a lot of time in the studios and writing a lot of music. Also, some artists I'm in touch with, they find it pretty hard at the moment to get inspiration and to get things going. But in general, my perception is that people are using the time now pretty well to get stuff done, to get new music done. Also, some people that have not been that long into producing music, like Daxi, our label head. I think he used the time pretty much also to just progress in his production and get his album going. So it's also a pretty interesting time for DJs to search for new talents and see what's going on, who's writing new music, also new projects that come together, two artists forming new projects together. It's happening a lot also now. So
I'm
it's
a,
a
I'm a
good,
little concerned,
yeah.
on certain angles. On one hand, there's guys they're really not inspired because they don't have a lot of interactions, so it's very hard for them to write music. But then there could be a lot of other producers that like they're just still writing because that's what they're doing, but they're also not inspired because
Hmm.
and like it comes out sometimes in the music that it's maybe a little bit bland, it's maybe a bit repetitive and nothing that much new because they don't get to be at parties or
Yeah.
the inspiration, like I'm the type of person, my inspiration comes from being around other people.
Hmm.
My inspiration comes from relationships, and I'm a little bit isolated in Indiana, so it's hard to like be creative in
Yeah.
my sense. This thing is like it's so awesome that I got to start doing this thing, and it was perfect timing.
Hmm.
But I get to hear people like you guys and that I'm not surrounded with. But I moved to this city, because I needed to uh, like I'm lucky that I started focusing on other career stuff,
Hmm.
other ways of trying to protect my future financially a little bit. Um, Before this pandemic happened, so I'm very fortunate. Not everybody else has, but I also knew inside like you got to diversify your talents, especially if you're in the entertainment world, because it's super volatile place. Like, so yeah, you got to take risk, and you got to have
Hmm.
that weird optimism as an entertainer. But you also like have to weigh out, like, I'm very lucky because when I lived in New York, I got to meet a lot of guys that made a living from doing this kind of stuff. And
Hmm.
it's like, what are you doing for retirement? Like, what happens if your ears blow and you just can't do this anymore? You're 60 and you have kids, like that you still need a support or whatever. Like, where's the money for that? Like, maybe you have money to kind of buy studio equipment and be able to live okay right now. So it's like, and then some of them didn't even really like doing it anymore. They maybe couldn't admit it, but you could see in their eyes like they don't really like doing this, but this is all they know how to do. And like, I didn't want to ever be in that situation. Like so that's why I didn't focus a lot on production, because like it's like, it's a lot of time and energy, like every producer would tell you. And I respect anybody who does, but it's like, I need to find another path that like I can always rely on, that is going to help pay my bills and help maybe save a little bit for retirement or whatever it is, so I can do that, like diversify your skills a little bit.
Definitely, yeah. I think the retirement topic is also maybe a different topic even in the States. Here in Europe, it's there are certain state institutions that you can sort of relate to when it comes to that topic. But I think in the States, it's a much more complex topic on how you take care of your retirement as an artist when it comes to that. But also if you write new music, you need to do a test run on a dance floor. So if that's not possible, it's also difficult to get new inspiration. I mean, now we are in the 10th month of the pandemic in Europe. So since 10 months, all the clubs are kind of closed. There have been some smaller events during summer, some smaller festivals, but yeah, you don't have that possibility to mingle with other people from your scene. You don't have possibilities to exchange on your music that people hear on festivals, that people give feedback to you. So I think it's a rather difficult time if you are already sort of established, maybe also if you sort of already took that decision, this is going to be my main aspect from which I'm going to live. But if you're like fresh into the whole producer identity thing, that you're trying to position yourself in the scene and try to get your live act ready, it can be also pretty useful to have that completely break that you are confronted with. Like for me, I was also in the last months of the pandemic, now during summer, I was finishing my PhD in cultural anthropology. So I was also pretty lucky. If there wouldn't be that complete lockdown, I would have had to go to festivals to play music or to conferences to present my research. So I was really lucky to completely have that time off and just focus on my work, write my thesis. And I think if there wouldn't have been Corona, then my thesis would not have been submitted by now. So it also has some positive aspect, and it's also always depending on you how you can make use of the circumstances that you find yourself in, I think.
Yeah, and tell me a little bit about this thesis that you wrote about. What is it in relation to?
So I'm a cultural anthropologist. I've studied anthropology in Germany and the Netherlands, and since 2016, I was working on my PhD project. I was doing research on different workshop formats for minor refugees in Germany. So the kids, they would learn how to use the camera and how to produce film, and therefore how to sort of represent themselves on camera and in certain media formats. So my idea was, to take a closer look on how these processes take place, why people offer formats to minor refugees where they learn how to use media. Is it really going to be for the good of these minor refugees, or are there maybe hidden agendas behind it, to maybe keep your own project going and maybe to work more on like issues that do not really come out to the best for these refugees, but maybe more for the people who organize these workshops? Are there hidden ideas behind? So that was my idea to do research on. And so I just submitted the thesis. I just started a new job now at a social service provider here in Munich, and I'm waiting for the result from my professors, and so I hope everything is going to be good. But now I'm definitely looking forward to get out of the university, do something more practical, So it's a little bit different, a little bit similar to your situation also, to maybe yeah, change certain directions that you're going in. You mentioned that you're now in a new education process, or that you started some training. So it's maybe a little bit similar, new aspects, a new period starting in life. So yeah.
Yeah, it's always been like that for me. I'm like that ADD person that's like, I can't do. But no, it's definitely leaning more in a better direction. I want to know a little bit more about like, since you've been in college and you know you got your PhD and all this stuff, like, and also alongside of that, you've been involved in the global psytrance community. Um, you know, and I know you're a big traveler, backpacker, right? You're like hardcore backpacker. I want to know a little bit about your take towards the scene and the way it changed over the years, and maybe you know, like your anthropological perspective uh, of what went on before this pandemic, how it's changed, and what's like social media, how that's affected it, and you know, and then now a lot of the political discourse maybe that's happening.
So yeah, traveling whenever I get the chance. I love traveling a lot. If it's like overseas, in Asia or South America, or in Europe. Now since 3 years I own my own van, so whenever possible I go on road trips, if it's for a week or 4 weeks or 2 months. Like, I'm always happy for any chance that I get to travel, which is, yeah, rather difficult at the moment. But I think so. My experience from traveling and psychedelic trance was always, it went hand by hand pretty well, because whenever you go somewhere where you haven't been before, or you just, if you have a stopover somewhere, then you just like open your Facebook, look for groups such as, I don't know, for example, I had a stopover in Istanbul. So I go on Facebook, I look for a group, psytrance Istanbul. I'm sending a message there like, hey guys, I'm having a stopover for 10 hours. Anybody up for coffee? Should we meet in the city? Something like that. So one couple contacted me and we spent a beautiful afternoon. We are still in touch from time to time. So it's just that little connecting points, I think, that you get offered when you are just part of a certain subculture or a certain scene. And yeah, you just have directly connecting points with people. You have similar interests.
You just sold me on coffee in Istanbul. That's probably like the best cup of coffee you've ever had. You know, so like real Turkish coffee. That, you know, that's my thing. So you got me excited about that.
Yeah, it was super nice. I just came back from Cape Town. I flew back to Munich via Istanbul. So I didn't really look forward to spend 10 hours at the airport. So I just made that post on that group, and I met some people and made new friends. So that's something which I really love, when you're like a part of this global scene. And through social media, you can make the best use out of it, because you can connect at any place. You can connect with people, make new friends, maybe even get the chance to stay at people's couches if you have a stopover, or, you know, it's because people usually, they're very welcoming and very open-minded. That's very good.
I get so nervous about that stuff. Maybe that's a cultural thing of me. Like why the hell would this person let me stay in their house? You know, like they don't even know me. You know, what are they doing? And it's like, I guess a lot of over the years, like I hosted when I was living in New York, I hosted a lot of people that came in from the psytrance community. I lived really close to JFK Airport. Like you could hear the airplanes over my apartments all the time. You can ask Michael and Daxi about all that stuff. But it's just like there was like sometimes you'd be get stuck in a situation where like there's some shadiness going on when you're having like a stranger, even from the psytrance community, coming into your place. So like it's that takes balls, man. But if you're a traveler, you know, you got to do stuff like that. You got to put yourself out there, and that's really cool that you used social media for that advantage, and it's paid off like immensely. I would have never thought of doing something like that if I had a 10-hour stopover in Istanbul. I probably would have taken a train somewhere or a cab somewhere and get some food and maybe just chill on my own and just like just walk around and see what's going on and like have my, but I never would have like looked on a Facebook group and try to meet up with people. Maybe I should do that. It's a good lesson. But yeah.
Yeah, it also depends always on the situation, like because like Cape Town and Istanbul, they're more or less in the same time zone. If I'm coming back with a 10-hour time difference and I'm completely jet lagged, then it's also maybe I prefer to stay at the airport and just chill out somewhere, watch a movie on my laptop or something. But yeah, I was just up for it and I felt comfortable. I had a good nap on the plane, so why not? And I think that's some really like that's a really enriching aspect if you're part of a like global subculture combined with social media, that you can really connect with people you haven't met before, and you can really learn a lot about also like local varieties of this scene that you have gotten to know for 10 years or maybe longer. But it's everywhere. It's similar, but it's also different in certain aspects. So that's really something which I really like about traveling and connecting with psychedelic trance freaks around the globe, because you see the things that you have in common, but you also learn a lot about local varieties when it comes to music, when it comes to fashion, when it comes to restriction also concerning parties. So in yeah, for example, in a small island in Indonesia, you have a completely different flair compared to indoor club party in Singapore, you know, although it's not really far apart from each other. But yeah, that's something I really love about traveling and seeing people from different places. Yeah.
Yeah. And Singapore's got to have they have some crazy rules, right? Like
Yeah.
you get a lot of trouble in Singapore, you know?
Especially if you're involved in certain activities that people that dance to electronic music tend to get involved in, it's not the best place to be relaxed and have a nice dance floor experience, because there's certain rules that are very strict. And so yeah, it was interesting to be there. I was there in 2013. I was living in the house of another DJ of Purple Hexagon Records, another label I'm also involved in, Andriano and Stomp. So I was chilling at his place for a week. He did an event in a club, and he just showed me around the place, and it was a completely, yeah, it was super interesting to get that insight, that local insight, you know. And that's something that I think you lack if you go out and venture on your own, which can be also super interesting. But just to have somebody by your side and tell you, well, this is interesting, and look at there, and that's what they do over here. So it's something that you just miss out on if you're venturing on your own, which can be also nice, of course.
Yeah. And it could be really boring. Like I did a stopover when I went to Boom in 2012. I stopped over in Madrid, you know, and I had found a hotel online. And that was the place I got to spend time, like, and walking around for a little bit. But man, I was there for like maybe 2-3 days, and I did not know what the hell to do there, you know? Like, I didn't want to spend too much money because I had like my budget, so I couldn't just take a cab anywhere. You know, I did go a little bit to the center of town, and everything was like really not what I expected. I'm like, oh, Madrid, it's this big city, but I'm like, dude, this is like desert land over here, you know, like, and everything's closed in the middle of the day. Like I'm like, this is
Siesta.
Ghost Town.
Yeah.
This is like Ghost Town. Like, and I just didn't know what to do with myself. And, I didn't really have, like, I had a little bit of internet service, but maybe I could have done what you done and found a Facebook group and be like, hey, who's hanging out here before Boom? I'm sure there's a lot of people hanging out in Madrid that are going to Boom
Definitely.
Festival.
Before
but
Boom, there's
I didn't
also the
even
Boom
think,
bus. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the boom bus was awesome, bro. The boom bus was like, talk about cultural melting pot on one little vehicle. Like there was a bunch of Brazilians on the back. I was sat next to this guy from Switzerland who was like wasted out of his mind, some punk, like he had this cup that he was carrying in the blazing hot sun. It had like Fanta, like orange Fanta and vodka in it. Oh, the problem was disgusting. And like he was talking, and I was such a closed-minded American that like I see him speaking to this other guy that was right in front of us, a really nice like French guy, like and they were like having these conversations in French, and I'm like, wait, you're from Switzerland and he's from France, what language, like you guys are speaking French, I think. I'm like, do they speak French? That's what they speak in Switzerland. And the drunk Swiss guy is like, no, they speak Swiss in France. I'm like, oh man, what I get myself into over here, and it was like the guy was so loud and obnoxious, but it was fun. And I met these this whole crew of British guys. One of them is a producer, really, really sweet people. And I was just like making fun of the way they talk because I love making fun of accents, and I'm like, well, I'm American, and everybody's got to like talk the same way I do, and but it's more of a joke. And we were just having a great time. It was just like so many different countries on the same bus, kind of sticking to each other, but intermingling, and everybody kind of had their own way, their own, like bringing their own social norm to what was going on.
Yeah.
That was such an experience, man.
Yeah. I like the boom bus. I used it myself, I think 3 times, and always I had nice encounters and nice interactions with interesting people. Yeah, because everybody's excited to go to the festival and everybody's just looking forward to connect with people, make friends, and it's just super, super nice if you meet then somebody you met in the boom bus before. If you meet him 2 or 3 days later at the main dance floor, you're just like, hey, yeah, wow, we met in the bus. It's super nice. How you doing? Where's your camp? The people get so overexcited, and it's just such a beautiful moment when you see that like this connection. Yeah, exactly. Somebody you completely don't know, you never met before, and then all these barriers slowly go down and you're just happy to see each other. It's actually an amazing moment to witness.
Yeah, and
sounds a bit cheesy, but it's it's just like that, I think.
no, but it's real, like, because everybody feels it. So it sounds cheesy because everyone says the same thing, like, and we always make this joke. I mean, you could say it with like Ozora or even Burning Man, how do you know if someone went to a Boom Festival, and you say, don't worry, they'll tell you.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And I'm definitely following that in that stereotype, like, oh, I'll talk about it all the time. But yeah, and you were talking to me a little bit before we even started recording. We were talking about this really interesting topic about like the difference between like a party going on in a more conservative place, like Munich, where you live, versus like a more thriving scene like Berlin. Like what cultural aspects that are different about, obviously the music could be somewhat the same if you have the same taste and it's the same artist and the same decoration, but like what you were saying, how there's major differences in the social interactions and the way people go party.
Well, at least from my perspective, like I've had that experience many times when I go to play in Berlin in a club or at a festival close to Berlin. And then let's say I'm sitting at the entrance, like the driver just dropped me, and then like I'm getting my wristband and they're asking me, so, oh yeah, where are you from? I'm like, yeah, I just came from Munich. I go, what? Munich? Oh my God. Okay. They have parties there. They have DJs there. Wow, that's crazy. So I'm really, I was confronted with that situation many times, and I kind of got sick of it, and I got very sensitive about it, because I feel that like in areas where there's a lot of subculture or counterculture, or however you want to name it, alternative culture, areas that are a bit more limited in their capacities to organize events that are a bit away from mainstream culture, like they tend to look down towards them and they say, well, is there subculture at all? Is there something happening in Bavaria? How are things doing over there? How are things going over there? And from my experience, like that's what we talked about before, if you attend at events, if you go to a psytrance party or if you go to a punk rock or a metal concert in Bavaria, I always had the feeling that the people and the whole interaction is much more authentic than, let's say, in a place like Berlin, where you have much more access to subculture and to alternative events, and it takes much less effort to be connected to these cultures also.
People
You
are
don't need
spoiled in
to.
cities like that. People have, I mean, not in like a bad way.
Definitely.
They're awesome cities. Like I'm sure, like, and I know there's a lot of similarities to Berlin, to New York City where I lived, and you have this access and people are just like kind of, they kind of it they kind of get spoiled and they have expectations, like really big
Mm,
expectations from everybody else to put it to make this awesome event. And if one thing goes wrong, they're going to complain because they're going to parties all the time. And maybe if
yeah,
one DJ wasn't as good or the flow wasn't as good, like that's what they're going to focus on, you know,
always
in
looking for the hair in the soup, yeah, somehow.
yeah. And they, it's it's definitely like, and whereas if you go to a smaller city, like people are just like appreciative of what's going on, they put it more together. Like maybe this, like when I spoke to Cry last week, maybe that has a lot to do with why the scene in Asheville is like, has so much more like less, maybe less complaining, and because they only get to party like a couple times a year with the
Mm,
psytrance event versus and they put in like, and a lot of people want to be a part of that, like they really, whereas in New York or wherever you had a party once a month or even twice a month, and in Berlin even more so, it's
you have
like
several parties every weekend usually.
yeah,
Like you
yeah.
really need to make a pick on which event you want to go. Or you can also do like, I'm starting the evening there, then I'm going there, and then for after hour I'm going there. So there's lots of events possibilities.
But how do you like appreciate all that stuff if that's what you do all the time? Like
Yeah,
if that's all, like if you live, and it's not knocking it, I mean, if you enjoy it and you like, and it's awesome every time, but like maybe sometimes you need to take a little bit of a break, you know, a little bit of a
yeah.
breather and try something new. Like, and
Pe-
I tell it to producers sometimes, you know, like they that lose inspiration. It's like, well, what are you doing? All you're doing is doing the same thing every day. You go to work, you go to a side, you play a psytrance gig every weekend, you know, like you're on social media just hanging out with your friends, you're in your bubble, you know,
mm,
you only listen to that music or maybe a little bit of other stuff, but like, so how do you expect you to be inspired if you're not exploring anything new? You know,
yeah,
you're not going outside of your comfort zone. I know you seem to be a person that loves going outside of their comfort zone by
I
hitting
need
up
to do
people.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and that, I mean, dude, to me that's like the definition of how, like, in college, that's when I got the most inspiration because I take classes and I'd have to read books of things I would never read about, you know,
Mm,
like, and this stuff was so inspiring. It's like this whole world of stuff I never even knew existed, and like there's tons and tons of literature on it, and it's like that to me is incredibly inspiring. Not just like reading not just going on Bandcamp or Beatport every day
mm,
and just filtering down, you know, like
yeah.
that's not going to be inspiring forever. Like you have to go outside, whether it's like when I started listening to jazz music because I was taking jazz courses in college and learning about the history of jazz in America. I'm like, dude, this is,
Wow.
and I live in New York City, which is like jazz capital of the world. Like
Hmm.
that's where I found like inspiration, you know, like after a little while, you know, because yeah, your first couple years into psychedelic trance, like you're gonna be totally inspired, but like after that, like you're gonna have to kind of look elsewhere, you know,
Yeah.
if it You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Definitely. Like the first years, everything is so new and colorful, and all these people, they are so diverse, and they live out their like identities in such a free way, and you're just like inspired and fascinated. But then for me, it was like that. Like after some years, I also like I realized that people who spend a lot of time on parties or celebrating, that like they make it a very big aspect of their life. It also tends to be a very big aspect of their self-perception, of their identity. So it's very important to, wear the right fashion, to fit into a certain picture, to stand on the right corner of the dance floor in front of the right box, to wear the right tattoo on your body on the right spot, to smoke the right hashish in the right chillum, like all these things that sort of structure the culture. I find it pretty irritating because in the beginning, I don't know, I haven't lived back in that day, but I think if I remember in the beginning, this whole Goa culture was more about like egalitarian hippie values and trading things on a non-financial way. And now over the years, I have the feeling that it's a lot about um, yeah, putting certain like material aspects too much into the focus of what you want to be and what you want to represent. If I look at the people that spend a lot of time at events, because of course you want to establish yourself as somebody who spends more time at these parties than like other people who are maybe going to one or two festivals every summer, and that's it. Then if you're going to every festival every summer, you want to show that also, and you want to make that visible. And I don't know, I have the feeling that some people sometimes they get a little bit lost in that structuring
I
this
know.
subculture to create the inner circle that is different to all these people outside the inner circle. And that is something I over the years I observed, which irritates me in a
I
way.
have I have a lot of friends back in the day in New York. They used to go to festivals every weekend. Like
Mm,
every weekend, it was their lifestyle. Um, but they don't do it longer than like a couple of years. They
mm,
burn out, you know. Or some of them died, but like it it just like, I mean, some of it was like they were they were selling substances, so like they were making a lot of money doing it, so it was their work. And if maybe you're a vendor, like I understand, like, but you have to kind of find that balance. Like
yeah.
I that's those are the people that I know that continue. Nobody does it their whole life that I know, and I'm sure in Europe people have do that. I don't know. Maybe you know better than I do. Do people
Mm.
that are going to festivals every weekend, that are traveling? I mean, it's got to be a little bit exhausting unless they're living a very healthy lifestyle.
It's becoming a routine, and I personally think every routine is toxic. Like if you have too much routines in your life, in your relationship, in your hobbies, in your music, or in your art consumption, you end up in a toxic circle, and you tend to reproduce patterns that are not very healthy. It's what I think,
Well, there
observing
could be
this.
healthy routine, right?
Yeah, yeah, could be also. You're right, of course, yeah. But
Like if you meditate every day, if you go to the gym every day, you eat, like that's like to have like an established schedule. Like, I mean, that's awesome for some people. Some people can't do that, and they got to find something else.
that's true. But
I
I
try
don't know
to.
if you heard about this as spiritual narcissism phenomena that now came up recently. I just read an article about it. It's about people that are having those very healthy routines about meditating, about doing yoga, but then they sort of become like preachers. They're like, oh, you don't live a healthy lifestyle. You do this and that. You do coke every weekend. You drink alcohol. You do this and that. So they sort of become preachers and start to feel superior. So
Gaslighting,
yeah,
gaslighting.
exactly. Gaslighting. I was missing that word. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
think also healthy routines at a certain point, if you let them become too much of your own identity, and if you start to reduce your ego from it, which is actually the complete opposite of what it's supposed to do. So
Yeah,
also then these routines become toxic and you should overcome them, I think.
it's a weird thing. I mean, I'll talk about, like, when I get into the stuff, I try to relate it back to myself and where have I behaved like this. And I definitely, like, the person that you're talking about, I've definitely been that person. I know when I stopped doing drugs many years ago, it'll be 13 and a half years ago, but in my first 2 years, I was completely sober. I tried to get everybody, all of my other friends sober, like, I'm like, this is this is what's up. And I judged people. And I said, you need the help that I got. You need to go to rehab, and this is how I talk to all my friends, and like, it was a reflection of the fact that, like, felt alone. Like, I just wanted them to be a part of my lifestyle because I love those people and I wanted them to be in the same, like, kind of mindset that I had, which isn't really cool. Like, I also wasn't completely happy with my situation, that I had abused drugs, that I lost my privilege to be able to partake in those things. And I wanted the same vibe. I wanted the same, I kind of missed a part of, like, them being a part of my life. But a lot of the time we had to kind of, because I started living a different lifestyle than them, I had to kind of separate. But after years, like, once I be able to found some kind of comfort in it and be really comfortable with being sober, like, I was able to be open-minded, to be around other people and not have to jeopardize the way I live my life. I wasn't afraid that other people would try to convince me not to be sober. And there has been a lot of people like, dude, Izzy, you need to come and we need to do psychedelics together. We need to, like, I get that all the time. And it doesn't bother me unless they keep nudging. It's annoying. But but once I became a lot more, like, truly comfortable, and I'm not saying I'm this happy kind of guy, once I became truly comfortable with the lifestyle I picked, I didn't feel the need to preach it anymore. It's a lot of the time I see people that are very new to stuff and they just want to spread it. Either they're excited or their ego is involved in it, and, like, they feel like such an elevate, like, a lot of it is this pink cloud. They call it the pink cloud. They're on this high, they're on this trip. But if you're in it for a long time, like, and that's just what you do, it just becomes part of your lifestyle. Like, you don't feel, I don't know, a lot of, maybe they followed their ego too far and they got stuck in it, but, like, if you're really living, like, I guess, in my opinion, if you're living a spiritual lifestyle, like, you have to go about it in certain ways to help people that need to get help. And sometimes you just got to fucking mind your own business. You know what I mean? Like, I learned that about living.
True that.
Like, it's none of your business. And that's how I see it. Like, and if you ask me, like, how do I go to psytrance parties and all these people are doing drugs? Like, I don't really care what they do, dude. Like, and I'm not judging it either. A lot of the people feel the need to explain to me that they do it, they control it, and I don't even ask. Like, I don't even bother them about it. I'm like, dude, this is the place to do it, man. Like, I'm in your guys' circle. Like this is if you're going to do it, you're going to do it here. Like, I'm part of your guys' scene. I don't get high, but, like, I'm not here to tell you to stop. Like, if you came to me for help, or you came to me because you want to try to do the same thing, like, yeah, I'll help you. But and honestly, I don't really care. Like, it's generally when people start doing, like, if people are going down the path of, like, heavy addiction, a lot of them eventually, of what I saw, a lot of them stop going to parties because they're partaking in opiates and, like, other substances that aren't even really that welcome in the scene, and they're not party drugs. So, like, they stop going to parties, and that's when some of them have gotten in touch with me. They're like, Izzy, like, I know you have a history with this stuff. And you're able to enjoy life. Like, how do you do that? Like, and I've taken some of them, to, like, I've tried to work with some of them a little bit there, but only because they asked, because you can't really help someone that doesn't want help, and the gaslighting thing, like, I've seen it a lot, and it's just like, you have to understand that those people are also suffering in their own way, and they're trying to cope with life, but anybody that thinks this is the path, this is the path for me, like that's not that, you know, it's like, yeah, it's hard to watch because it's like another religion. It's like
Hmm.
seeing like another kind of extremist kind of mentality. And, you know, it's sometimes best just to distance yourself, you know, from that situation.
Yeah, yeah, and you focus more on what separates you than what connects you. You know, if you just focus on, like, I'm not doing drugs, you're doing drugs, so my behavior is better than yours. Or also people that take certain drugs, like you take coke, I only take psychedelics, so I'm much better than you. It's always creating hierarchies and separation. You know, I think it doesn't really matter to focus on what separates you. You know, if some people prefer to take certain substances that other people do not like to take, it's their cup of tea, and they are going to be confronted with the results. It's not up to you or to anybody to judge that. You know, so to yeah to it's I find it interesting to see that people that are dancing on the same dance floor that become one are actually focusing so much on processes and acts of making a difference, you know, of showing I am different to you when you are actually there on the dance floor to become one, to dissolve boundaries. You know, why you have to create like new boundaries and create new hierarchies, new social hierarchies between you and the other, when you're actually going there to dissolve hierarchies, to get out of a system that confronts you with, I don't know, global disparities due to globalization, capitalism, whatever. And then you are going to a hierarchy-free room or to a free cultural space where you actually could create something different. But so why you have to always like focus on that?
Yeah,
Uh,
and I have to tell you, because it's like this part of being human, you know.
I think so too.
I
Yeah.
think because I definitely have been guilty about that when I'm not really conscious and I'm not really thinking about it. Like, you know,
Mm.
sometimes I start comparing myself, like my ego comes out, you know, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like it's important to be able to distance yourself from that. Like, hey, am I really better than that person, or am I really less than that person? Because the ego, a lot of people
Yeah.
ignore that, tells you, because people that look at situations like they hierarchical, they also feel less than other people, you know. The
Mm-hmm.
ego also tells you that you're worse than them, that you're not as good as somebody else, where it's like all this stuff is bullshit. It's all an illusion, you know what I mean? But it
Yeah.
still comes out. It's still like a real part of our head that, and we got to be careful about that, you know, like, and not, and it's like a lot of it, to me, in my opinion, like I have to be conscious about my ego. It's not going away. When I hear someone
Mm-hmm.
says they have no ego, maybe you define it differently than I do. But in my opinion, everybody has an ego. It's just a matter of how attached they are to it, you know, and how it comes out, like, and how they deal with it.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
Can be
for
also
me,
productive.
I have to recognize that this is what I'm doing. I'm comparing myself to
Yeah.
somebody on the dance floor. Like, I'm judging them. But then at the same time, when I'm judging others on the dance floor, I'm feeling judged myself. Like, it goes hand in hand. It's
Mm.
not a good feeling, man. It's not a good
I,
feeling.
the ego can be also very productive driving force. Like if you want to start a project, if you have a vision, or if you want to start a label, want to start a festival, do kind stuff like that. You know, where you need to have a vision of where I want to be in 5 or 6 years. The ego can be also pretty stable driving force to
But
get you
that's
going.
that same ego could also ruin you too,
Yeah,
coming
it's
from
a
the same place.
small line. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
and it could interlap. It's like, hey, I'm really ambitious. I want my label to be here, but what are you gonna do to get it there? Are you gonna be ethical, or are you gonna do some fucking slimy shit? You know, like how are you gonna treat people along the process? How are you? You know what I mean? Like, do the ends justify the means kind of thing? So it's like it's little things along the way that's like it's gonna make you feel about yourself. Sometimes, like, I'm not willing to compromise. Like, I have an ambition to be a software engineer, but what am I willing to compromise about my soul to be a software engineer? Where am I going to work? What kind of type of work am I going to do to get that financial stability or whatever it is to be the success that I kind of want to be, in terms of that. And the same thing goes with DJing. Like, what am I willing to do to get a gig? Like, what am I willing to do? And you have to ask yourself, like, am I willing to put up with this? Am I willing to, whatever it is, destroy another promoter or get involved, like whatever it is, like, and I've been guilty of certain things, like nothing terrible, but like I got caught up in that hierarchical nonsense for a long time and I had to step away from it. Like, I'm like, it's just worth it, like not taking gigs than getting involved in some of the chaos that's happening here and getting involved in some of these
That's
fights
true.
and like raising my voice like about stuff that's going wrong. Is it a good thing? Like, I don't know. Sometimes it's like I have to step back. I'm like, you know what, this is none of my business. But a lot of people maybe are looking for my output in the scene because I was working behind the scenes, so it's just like when you're given a power voice, like, and DJs, producers, they are given that power, and when are they going to exercise it? So there is a little bit of a hierarchical approach, but it's like, how much power should they have? Like, it really comes down to the specifics. How much, like, what is, I don't know. Yeah.
I think certain aspects you just have responsibilities because you're a public person as an artist or a DJ. Like, you're also somehow a projection space for the people on the dance floor or the people following the label that you're signed for or the people following your music. So for me, I think now during Corona also, I was asked for to play gigs on like non-licensed underground small forest events, but I declined because I decided it's not the right thing to do. I don't want my name to be associated with some events that could actually become a super spreading event, where people just get together without observing certain security measures that are just very important these days, I think. So for myself, I decided not to accept bookings at non-licensed events now during the Corona time, because I hope that maybe next summer in Europe, we will be able to have fully licensed legal events again. And the less artists or DJs play at such like underground events, the sooner I think we will all be able to have the usual events and parties that we all so much enjoy. So it's also a certain responsibility with the artists and the DJs to really ask yourself, okay, do I want my name to be associated with the concept of this party? Also, if a promoter is posting certain political positions on Facebook or social media, you need to ask yourself, is it really the right thing that my name is put on the same page like the name of this promoter and the political messages that he's spreading through his social media channels?
It's hard to find that balance where, like, like, how far are they going with it? Like, is it something that I'm not, it's like, it's very hard. Like, a lot of people will take two extremes, one is like gonna be like full on attack mode, which isn't super healthy in my opinion. And then there's the person that's like, no, I just want to get along with everybody and like try to be as little controversial as possible and be like, I don't care what they believe in, like, I just want everybody to get along and make out and have sex, like, and like, I don't know, like, it's hard. It's hard to find that balance. It's hard to find that balance. And like, when you need to kind of step up, like, I had to kind of do it recently. My friends, if they're watching it, they know what's going on. But it's funny that you bring this topic up, of some stuff that happened in New York. I'm not going to get into details because I don't want to badmouth. But whoever saw it saw it. And it's just like, it's very sad. It's sad and it's hard to watch. And like, you see like even it's like it would never, that's part of the, you talked about some of the great things that happen with social media, but
Mm.
there's also tremendous, I mean, everybody's seeing it now, the tremendous amount of division and polarization with social media, especially
Yeah,
here in the US. And I'm sure
it's the
it's going out.
other side of the coin. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the other side of the coin. And, you know, in some ways it's good. And in some ways it could be really toxic. And this is a
Mm.
hard time for everybody. Like, I empathize with people. We're stuck at home. Like, a lot of us are social beings. Like, we get it. And you see sometimes, and even sometimes me, like slowly kind of fading into chaos and craziness from being so isolated, you
Mm.
know?
Yeah, it's yeah, it's also like you're completely right. I see very strange things happening also here in Europe, very weird postings from people that you would have never thought that take such positions. And I really, I'm getting a little bit sad to see that so many people from the psytrance scene are not able to see this break that we are getting confronted with. It's not a voluntary break that we have from partying and mingling together. But I'm really sad to see that so many people don't see that as a chance to regain new perspectives, to reflect upon certain things, to reconnect with their closest surroundings. I mean, we all have friends all around the globe that we can see when we are traveling, or people that we see on the festivals all the time, but we have a very close surrounding around us. So it's a great chance also to appreciate things that you usually take for granted. And I feel that many people, they get stuck in frustration, negativity, and conspiracy theories, whatever. They're playing the blame game on social media. But I think it's also very beautiful chance, if you get such a break, to just make use of it and focus on what's actually going on in your social relationships close around you, what's going on in the relationship with your girlfriend or boyfriend, when you don't have the chance to just escape all the time in traveling or in festivals or in consuming places, you know. So I would be super happy to see people more appreciating aspects that they take for granted, like nature. Go more to the mountains, go more to the sea, go for long hikes, you know. Listen to a nice podcast like the one we are recording now. Take things that you take for granted, try to appreciate them on a new way. And I think this time that we are now living in could be also a big chance for many people. But sadly, in the psytrance scene, I don't see so many people making use of this time now in a way that could be productive, sadly.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, and I don't fully blame them for it. Like, they have, you know, they have, obviously they have somewhat of a responsibility. Like,
Mm,
I get it. Like, you know, from my perspective, like, I was in this trade school that I started out in, it was July 2019. Yeah, July 2019. And it's a year long. So when March hit, like, we went completely remote. I was going
mm,
in person. And that's the type of person I am. Like, when I learn, I love to be interactive. I need people in front of I'm a kinesthetic learner. And
mm,
adapting, learning how to program from scratch, like, and having to work in the in my house. Like, I never was able to focus in my house. Like, even in college, I couldn't. I had to go to the library. You know,
mm,
I had to find partners, and this wasn't like, yeah, I had a little bit of Zoom, but I couldn't get it. Like, it totally, like, and it was, my mental health was like deteriorating because of it. And I was
mm,
like, how do I figure out how to do this? Like, be more productive. It's very hard for me to be productive because that's where I get my energy. I get my energy and my inspiration from being face to face with people. Like,
mm,
and not everybody is built that way. Some people are really rocking independent learners
mm,
and able to do that. So everybody functions differently, but I had to really push hard to learn how to do it. So I don't completely blame them for
Yeah.
people who are much more interactive, that they built their life around getting their energy around social interaction, a little bit more extroverted. A lot of
Mm.
these people kind of lost it a little bit and have to find their way back. So I'm trying to use it more as like, to push, like, for that situation, calling a few people a day,
Mm.
spending a little bit of time with like whatever it is that needs to get you going, talking out your problems in person, not texting that shit. Like I'm like, texting is great and that's how I stay in touch with a lot of people, but I need to hear their voice. I
Yeah.
need some different form of communication because it's not 100% authentic. Like you have time, like sometimes it's just about not thinking about what you're going to say next and getting it
Mm.
out. And that's sometimes the real honest truth of what's coming out, you
Yeah.
know?
I really love the this conversation because I have the feeling that I'm always trying to put out things that I find disturbing or that I would like to point out as something negative, and then I really love the fact that you always are kind of related to your own experience and sort of come up with something like, I can't blame those people and I understand them. So I always feel bad after
Oh, I
because
didn't mean to. I don't mean to do that because
no, but I really
because
like it. It's really productive because you have this understanding and approach, and you sort of relate the things to yourself, and you bring up personal examples that when you point them out, I completely can also relate to them. And I also, for myself, start to think, well, maybe it's a bit harsh, to go on people and blame them for being a bit unflexible during times of pandemic. But I think it's just also for me, it's always been my approach to try and think outside the box and see positive aspects in situations that you are just being thrown into or that you're just being confronted with. And
yeah, and
maybe I'm
maybe
going a bit too harsh with
no, I don't. I
members
don't.
of
I
us.
don't think
No,
so. I think it's a good balance because some people
definitely.
you might speak to, like some people might hear the way you're saying it and be like, "Yeah, you're right.
Mm.
I gotta fucking get off my ass and start doing some shit." And some people are like, you know what? Like some people maybe need to hear it the way I said it. Like, so I'm trying to give like a little bit of balance to that, and like
Mm.
and because I see it the way you see it too. Like
Mm.
I totally understand that. And it's very easy to get caught up in that, but like but it's also like sometimes you just like got to think about like, hey, is there people I try to be, but I'm not always understanding like some people that are so far like down the Q train, the QAnon train,
Mm-hmm.
like it's very hard for me to be like, dude, stop. I told you like 6 times, stop sending me these fucking videos,
Yeah.
bro. Like, it's frustrating. And sometimes you have to like kind of let that shit go. There's some people like, no matter how you confront it, like it's hard to like be nice about it. It's hard to
Mm.
be tolerant about it,
Yeah. Super
and
hard, yeah, to show some understanding for ideologies that are just absurd in my perspective, and also
yeah,
to show understanding if people go on political demonstrations, manifestations with alt-right and new right groups. So for me, being a German, my past, our cultural history just forbids us to um, walk with any person that has some association to National Socialism, or that denies that there has been something happening like a Holocaust. It just forbids us to walk with them on the street for the same cause. So I don't understand at all
yeah,
why people from our scene are compromising on that. Why? Like it's it's okay. You can be apolitical, but certain things, I think, and that's something maybe I'm having a too high expectation on how people may consider certain political realms and how they evaluate them. But yeah, QAnon alt-right is just something I have a very hard time to understand and to relate to
yeah,
how these things work together. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Me too, me too. And I just Yeah, it's hard where that guy like was wearing that Camp Auschwitz shirt in the
Oh yeah.
Washington thing, and it says 6 million not enough. I'm like, and then people calling him a Holocaust denier. I'm like, wait. If you believe there's 6 million, like you got to choose one. Like, do
Yeah.
you believe it happened and want it to happen again, or are you denying the Holocaust? Like, pick one, because like I'm a little confused. It's
Yeah.
one thing you denying the Holocaust, and the Jews didn't, and the Gypsies and the Slavs didn't get it enough,
Mm.
or you decide like you you do believe in it and you want it to happen again. Like, I don't know what's worse, really. Like, I don't under I it's weird. It's like this cognitive dissonance. I don't understand it,
Yeah.
but
But
yeah.
then again, social media can be so entertaining also. I don't know if you
Yeah.
know the
Oh,
Proud Boys, I guess. So it's a super nice move from the LGBTQ community to just take over that hashtag, you know. We're also Proud Boys.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
just, in the context of social media and
My
postmodernity, you can just make these hashtags and these groups,
here's
make them absurd and super, super nice.
here's the weird thing with that, though. Like, most of my posts, like 98% of my posts, are not meant to be taken like lit seriously. But I have so many friends on Facebook, and like so many people that could get triggered, that think like there's this seriousness about it. Like, when I'm serious, like you'll see it's a serious post, but like
Yeah,
sometimes there's like I'll make like a joke, and like I'm like, not everybody understands my sense of humor. That's why it's like such a weird way to communicate, because and it's the same thing. Like, I have like this very kind of, me and my friends in New York, it's very, the relationship I have with them is like we bust each other's balls. Like, we make fun of each
sure.
other. Like, we torture each other, but we love, but it's how we show our love, you
Mm.
know? But somebody else that doesn't necessarily know that, I wouldn't treat them like that, because like they might take it seriously, and it's not the way to behave to somebody else. Like, but when I get close to somebody like this, that's how I interact with them, and that's how they interact with me, and I love them
Yeah.
for it. Like, it's but it's not meant for everybody, and sometimes like that kind of behavior of mine could come out on social media, where I'm just not really even attacking somebody, but they feel attacked because
Mm.
they're reading it and they don't understand the way I'm saying it. So it's like, but when I talk to them in person, like I see like there's so many factors of what goes on in someone else's life that you don't know behind that screen. It's like
Yeah.
you might have been best friends with that person,
Mm.
like if you would have met each other at a, and people are seeing that. There's like, I met this guy at a party, he was awesome, but now like I see him on, he's a Proud Boy or whatever. Like, it's fucking, it's hard to watch, and maybe it's a good thing. Like, I don't know. It's
Mm.
not for me to decide, but it's definitely like I got to be more careful. I regret almost every post I put on Facebook. I end
Mm.
up regretting it a little bit,
Yeah.
not enough for me to take it down, but like maybe I shouldn't have posted that. Maybe that was a waste of energy and a waste of time, because now I got to respond to this person that like has this other perspective, or like I see another perspective that like maybe what I wrote, like I didn't think about too much, like that's but I learn a lot from it too. I
Mm.
learn a lot from it.
Yeah, it's interesting how people present themselves on social media in general, how they relate to certain contents, and also how they somehow offer such deep insights into their personal life through posts on Facebook, which I find also interesting on the one side, but on the other side also somehow like irritating. And do I really want all those people on my friends list to give that space that they can, if they know me a little bit, somehow relate to my current state of feelings about my partner, about my surroundings, about everything? I don't know. I feel over the years I observed that I'm not posting anything on Facebook or Instagram. If I go to the mountains, to nature, if I'm having a nice weekend with my girlfriend, if I don't want people to know that it's for me, it's for us, for those people that I'm sharing the moment with. And it's
What a
again, I'm
great way
getting
to live.
judgmental. I
But
feel like
it's a
like
great way to live, man. Like I kind of there's a part of me that I envy that. Like it's sometimes I do it. It's like it's something stupid. Like I get it. Like, you know, and it's like attention seeking. It's sometimes driven by my ego, but like when I see people
yeah.
that don't do it, I get inspired. Like, hey, like that's they don't do it, like they remove themselves. It's a little bit of addictive, you know, like it's a
Definitely.
flaw.
It's also
um
designed addictively that you like always when there pops up a new notification, you get like a ding, 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 ding
yeah,
dopamine high.
yeah, who
It's
loves
like
me
if you do a
today,
line
who
of coke, you know, ding, 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 ding. Ah, nice.
yeah,
Woo-hoo-hoo.
absolutely. And it's like, who loves me today, you know?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
I fall short to that sometimes, you know, especially like, you know, I don't have a lot of friends around me in Indiana, and it's how I keep in touch with people.
Mm,
It's also like I don't accept random friend requests anymore. Like I
yeah.
don't care if I have 100 like I get friend requests, like, and if you're watching this, like, don't send me a friend request on Facebook if you're
Same here.
not going to send me a message. Like, send me a message and why you want to connect. I don't mind meeting new people, but like, even if you have 150, 160 mutual friends with me because of psytrance scene, like,
Mm,
but I don't know you, like, I'm not going to accept it because like I just want to kind of keep it tight knit with people because I used to accept everybody. Every
yeah.
Sangoma post that I'm tagged into, I ends up with 5, 6 new friend requests. And it's
Mm,
just like I don't want to fill up my Facebook with people that I don't know, that like it's just not what I like, not what I want. It's like, and had consequences of that. I don't want to see feed of people I don't know that I haven't connected with. So if you want to connect, like shoot me reply on here on YouTube. We're going to have an email address that's posted on here if you want to engage with the podcast. Subscribe to this channel. If you want to see more of this, send an email of how you want to engage, but interact. But don't just send me a friend request on Facebook, because I'm not going to accept it unless there's like a message behind it and why you want it, a reason why you want to connect, you know, and I'm more than happy to connect. You know, if
mm.
there's a good reason to do so, like, uh, but that's what I had, you know, have to say about that. A lot of people, and maybe it's for promotional reasons, and I'm not knocking it, but it's just like I'm not going to accept it. Like, I'm sorry, dude. You know,
Understandable. Yeah.
like and yeah, dude, on another topic, I want to talk more about 1 second. I had the sheet over here. Oh yeah, okay. And so we talked about this. Oh, I want to talk about some of the projects you're working on.
Lovely. Yeah.
Your releases that's coming out soon.
Perfect. I was also gonna sort of go that direction. Yeah, I'm trying to keep myself busy during the pandemic as there's no gigs to play. Like my CDJs are getting a bit dusty at the moment because I also, it's difficult. I don't feel like playing like hours and hours of music at home if there's nobody dancing. And how I tended to do it over the last years, like I was preparing a lot for gigs and mixing new music and thinking of what to play and how to connect, how to make up my own story with music. So it's a bit difficult at the moment. I'm not spending too much time in front of my CDJs, but I still collect a lot of music. I'm still following a lot of what's going on. I'm working on 2 compilations at the moment. One is a 20 years anniversary compilation we are going to release on the Gagalaka Bandcamp account. Gagalaka is a festival I was working for a few years for now in Germany. It's a small, medium range festival. We're having around 2,000 people coming. We had 2,000 people coming the last years. We're trying to make a smaller version next year, like a Corona suitable solution. As we had to cancel the event last year. So we're thinking about 500 to 1,000 people with like a smaller lineup, less costs, of course. But nonetheless, we are working on a anniversary compilation with 2 parts. There's also going to be 1 or 2 Sangoma artists on it, so keep your eyes on that one. And I'm also additionally working on another compilation for Sangoma Records, trying to get ready by spring, so it can hit the record stores before summer. And then hopefully you guys will be able to hear some fresh music at the summer open airs, which I hope will be happening, if not in the same size, so maybe in a reduced size. And maybe there will be even more events, because some organizations, they are planning several events, maybe 2 or 3 events on certain weekends instead of one big party, which is also a plan we have in mind at Gagalaka Festival, which we are going to figure out by the end of this month. So I think it's interesting times also in terms of new releases. There's going to be a lot happening by next year, by this year. We're already in 2021. So lots of new releases coming from my side, as well as in general from Sangoma Records and many other interesting labels. And there's also, I think, a new era for festivals. As I said, I think there's going to be a different size of open air events coming up next year, because there will be obviously limitations. We all don't know how all the vaccination stuff is going to affect our summer. But I do hope there's going to be fully licensed legal events, and I do hope that we all get to play again. And I do hope that I see many people at the dance floors. And
what kind
hopefully,
of
yeah.
styles
Oh
would
yeah.
I expect to hear in terms of the compilation for the Gagalaka Festival?
So at Gagalaka Festival, we do have 2 dance floors, one main dance floor, and then we have a chill, thrill, kill out floor. So the name is also sort of program of what's going on there. There's music being played from 30 beats per minute until 200 beats per minute. So it's a very diverse, very varied dance floor, which I also think that many people appreciate a lot. So we decided to split the compilation into 2 parts. One is like main floor, psytrance, and the other one is sort of this diverse chill, thrill, kill out music that we're currently collecting. It's going to be 20 tracks as we are celebrating 20th anniversary. That was the idea behind it. And we are trying to include artists that we have worked frequently over the years. And we're also trying to include newcomers. We try to include artists from our own group that we are trying to offer a platform with this compilation. And so it's going to be very diverse, very wide range of styles and BPM ranges. And it's also like a team production. I think there's 4, 5, 6 people involved from the team. It's a lot of communication. It's a lot of compromising that one has to do, but it's really a community basic democratic project, which I really love. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of communication, but it's really diverse. And I think the result will also mirror this diversity of A, the festival, and B, the musical interests of the whole team. So it's a really challenging and beautiful project, which I really enjoy a lot. And
awesome.
Maybe about the Sangoma compilation.
Yeah. Dude, I think you were the first compilation that ever came out on Sangoma Records, the Multi-Faith Mantra.
Multi-Faith Mantra in 2012, that's right. Yeah, my compilation was the first ever various artist release on Sangoma Records. Yeah,
dude, that was a sick compilation, and I still played tracks. I still played that Big Scary
nice
Monster
one.
track. That was like
too.
almost a
Yeah,
signature.
yeah.
That was it. Still is. Sometimes I'll play it, but it's a big signature. And sometimes people from New York, because I played to used to play to the same dance floors in New York, and it's a very recognizable track with the
Definitely.
samples.
Yeah.
And people come to me even before my set. They're like, "Are you gonna play Uncomfortable? You're gonna play Uncomfortable?" Yeah,
Uncomfortable.
people are
Super
like,
nice.
play
And I'm
it.
seeing monsters. I'm losing my mind. The sample is just amazing. Yeah.
And
And you can really
the way
imagine
it just drops, the way it drops. I'm not a huge drop guy, but the way those guys from Boom Shanka used to hit drops, like that's what I love when psytrance. When there's a break, it's like if you're gonna put a break in this nighttime style in this track, I want to hear something completely different, than what's been going on before. Like when I want to hear, if you're gonna do a build up and a boom, like I want to hear a whole new lead. I want to hear just like the full power part. But if you're gonna kind of have like a different vibe to it, don't need to put so much buildups in it. But don't get me excited for a buildup and then go back to what it was before. You know what I mean? That's just my taste, you know.
I also still love to play that track, and also the Psy4rY remix, Scorp Psy4rY, which was remixed by Anti-Spin. I also tend to play it from time to time. So
of course,
it's nice. That's also how I love to draw from my experience over the years. If you're DJing for 10, 12 years, you have such a diverse repertoire you can draw from. You can play tracks that are 10, 11 years old that still sound fat, or that have been remastered or remixed. So that's really something over the years. I think DJs are like good wine. Over the years, they just get better and better.
The same thing. It's like after a certain amount of years of collecting music, it's like I have so much, and I notice a lot of other DJs make the mistake. Well, I'm going to need to play this because I got this unreleased, or because it's newer stuff and people want to hear. And it's like, don't get something and don't play something just because it's new and it's fresh.
Doesn't make sense.
Make sure you really like it. Make sure you really like this. But if you feel that an artist has gone stale, and maybe their older stuff is a little bit better, then don't be afraid to play their older stuff, even if it's like sometimes that stuff, like not a lot of people are playing it anymore because it's not new anymore. So people want to rehear it. And a lot of the time there's fresher faces on the dance floor that never got to hear it. They just started coming to parties, so in my opinion, it's like, I don't collect as much as I used to, but I don't have to, because I have a ton of music. I try to keep a little bit of fresh stuff in my sets that's new, but only because like I like it. And people, and there's a lot of big nerds on that dance floor that are like, hey man, like I didn't know, like they get excited when they don't know a track. So there is that room for like, I get to hear newer stuff, but it better be rocking, dude. Like, but just for the concept of like, I want to play unreleased music. I have unreleased music. So like, dude, I could give two shits, bro. Two shits. And sometimes it's not finished, those tracks. And
not properly mixed. It's just amateur mastering with some flat program or something. It doesn't make sense to play them on a big dance floor with a proper sound system, just because
putting
you want
up the gain.
Produce your ego, because I have this track and I can play it.
And just putting up the gain on the mixer because it's not mastered yet is not going to make your track mastered. It's not going to make your track mastered, bro.
It's just going to smash the ears of your dance floor, but it's not a healthy way of doing things, definitely.
Yeah.
In techno culture, like let's say in Berlin techno parties, there's a lot more established way of just playing old tracks and playing music from the 90s, mixed with a new techno track that has been released in 2020. So in psytrance, generally there's this trend of just play fresh music, new music, but don't go back to the stuff that you have been playing 7-8 years ago. So it's just, I think if the tracks are properly produced and mastered by the right mastering engineer, you can still play them. It doesn't make them any worse for my, like that. There has been, if you play tracks that are 15 years old, of course there's a difference, but
But already 2010, 2011, like it was full quality. Some of it even better quality
Yeah,
than and
I'm
to
not
me
a
that was
professional
almost.
sound designer or producer. I cannot judge from that point of view. But for me, like from the perspective of a DJ, like how the kick bass line sounds, how the arrangement works, how producer work with the snare and the percussions. For me, it's there hasn't been much change in quality or in the stuff that I can play since 2010, 2011
And
from my point of view.
specifically in the groovy nighttime stuff, to me that was like around those years were like the peak of it. A lot of these sounds were newer, so they were more exciting, like than they are,
Yeah,
as being repeated presets. There's an energy to that music that's like,
yeah,
you know,
exactly. And also the arrangement of the tracks. I sometimes now these days, maybe it's also because after the years you choose more eclectic what you want to put in your sets and what you want to put on your USB sticks. But I think also the arrangement has somehow decreased compared to those years when you're really having some dynamic in the track that surprises you or that is really taking you somewhere. And now it's just lots of tracks that follow that specific genre, nighttime music or groovy nighttime. um, it's not very much dynamic in the sense of innovative arrangement from my perspective.
there's
I
not a lot of
think.
risk. There's not a lot of risk
Yeah,
happening.
exactly. Yeah. It's true.
And it all comes down to like, to the reason, like why, like what's the purpose of this track? Like, is it just to have this certain arrangement that works on a dance floor, like, or is there a middle of like that it, because it's like where are they following like a specific structure to like
Mm,
this is the arrangement of the tracks that really worked well on the dance floor, so I'm going to continue following that. Whereas like, and that's a way to produce also. And then there's like, I'm gonna like, I'm kind of bored, like let me try something a little bit different. If it doesn't work, well, fuck it, you know what I mean? Like if it
mm,
works, and it's um so I don't know exactly what always goes on behind the head. And sometimes it's just like, it's more of like, a lot of the time I get the feeling that it's more about like what they're using to make it in the process. Like
mm,
a lot of the analog guys that are messing around with analog, they're just having a lot of fun playing around with their toys. They don't care, like as long as it's like a finished track and it goes well together. Like it doesn't have to be something super new and risk taking, but they're having a lot of fun doing it. So if they're enjoying
mm.
what they're spending tens of hours of doing it and they're able to get good bookings out of it, like, dude, all the more to you. But
Yeah.
it's not, but we do, us DJs, we kind of miss that those risk taking and finding new, and it's harder to make new sounds because there's so much innovation that's happened since then. You
Mm.
know, I couldn't tell you, like I'm not, we're not we're not people to judge because we don't produce music. So like, what the
Yeah.
fuck does it matter? Like
But but also from my experience on compiling various artist releases, I also experienced producers being very happy to get like detailed feedback from a DJ perspective. Like, of course, we cannot tell a lot about EQing and the final mix and stuff, but we can um, like we can put a lot of information back to the artist when it comes to arrangement, when it comes to dynamics, when it comes to the story, how it's being
yeah,
told, when the hi-hat is coming in, does it work well, or is it sort of can we just wait another loop, or should we make it earlier? So there's a lot of feedback that I think
yeah,
we as DJs can very effectively give back to the producers.
absolutely. And like I appreciate, like, and I know producers that are like that love that stuff because I can understand them. They're listening to loops for a very long amount of time,
Yeah.
so they don't, it's very hard to be able to tell like to give your own judgment on your own track, to be like, is this a little repetitive, or is it only repetitive because I've been listening to this loop and arranging stuff for such a long time?
It's
So it's much
psytrance.
easier for
It's not
fresh ears.
repetitive.
Yeah, well, sometimes it is a little bit. Like there are
Was a joke.
yeah. Well, exactly. Okay. Yeah. But sometimes they want that it's like they want that feedback because they need they need those fresh ears to be like, hey, like you've been working on this track for 3 days. It's like you need a pair of fresh ears. And sometimes they'll only put like there'll be like little parts in a track that are so awesome, but they don't put enough of that in there. It's like, dude, like, why aren't you playing around with that sound more? Like that sound I don't hear as much in tracks. You're putting all the bubbles and the FM synths, like overcrowding the track with it that I hear in every psytrance track, but you have these little hints of stuff going on for like just like this small part section. Like, why not make that your lead, bro? Like that thing gets me excited. That's something that's like still gives me the chills. And it's hard to give me the chills when I've been listening to this music for so long,
Yeah, I can relate from my PhD thesis because like it's a document that has 280 pages. And at some point at the end, I just like when I read through the chapters, I couldn't really understand what was written there, because I completely was too much immersed in the whole topic in my whole research. So at some point I had to give it out to somebody else to proofread it and to tell me if the whole stuff makes sense that I had written there. So it's essential, I think, at any work that you put your whole energy or your whole focus in, that you get external feedback at some point. Otherwise, like you're going in loops in your own little perception, and you can't really progress or get an idea if things work or not. Yeah.
Yo, dude, we've been on here for a really long time. A lot longer than expected.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, but dude, I gotta run soon. But dude, this was awesome, man. I hope to have you up on again. There's so much more I want to talk to you about,
Yeah.
And I had a great time, dude.
I was really looking forward to the talk, and I really enjoyed it. Thanks, Izzy, for having me.
Yes.
And good luck for the whole project. I'm super curious to hear more people talk about their perspectives of their projects outside the psytrance scene, or maybe in relation to it. So big up for the whole idea and the whole podcast. And I'm curious, did you already think of a name? I think you had Till proposed something like Dizzy with Izzy, or
no. We're not gonna do that.
Sadly.
It's gonna be the channel is gonna be called the Sangoma Society, which isn't only gonna be my podcast. I guess this is gonna launch it, but a little like kind of channel. And I guess this will be called Convos with Izzy. I'm still like, maybe we'll change it. Who knows? I don't really care. But we'll see what happens. See what happens with all that stuff.
I'm curious. Good luck with the project. Super awesome work. I was super happy to be part of it.
Awesome.